Thank you. Good day and welcome to today's broadcast. Today's broadcast will just be very short, just for 1 hour. We are introducing a new program, a new topic, power trade. It's quite technical, and I hope that I can get a technical expert like Johnston Chikwanda or any of those engineers that are familiar with this sector so that our people can understand what is happening to the power, private power traders. Apparently, there is a new phenomenon where when we opened access to the infrastructure for Zesco, for transmission and distribution, a new flurry of companies have come on board that have been awarded licenses and access to Zesco infrastructure, and they are importing power from Mozambique, from South Africa, exporting it to the Congo and to the mines. The reason that I think this matter needs to come up is that there should be an open, accountable, transparent process in which such a highly lucrative business should be open to all traders. And that's why I thought we should discuss it. Further, the regulations were the idea was first introduced in the Electricity Act of 2019, that the Zesco'S infrastructure should have an open access. But President Hakainde Hichilema has promulgated this into action, and he set up regulations. And now there's a flurry of companies. Again, we need to hasten. Power trade has always been going on. The primary institution that has been doing power trade is Zesco. It will import power from Mozambique, from South Africa, export to the DRC. It generates its own power, will export to Namibia, will export to Botswana, will export anywhere, supply the mines and supply a CEC in the bulk supply agreement. There's a relationship where Zesco sells power to CEC, and where Zesco buys power from independent power suppliers such as Lunsemfwa and Maamba Collieries and other independent power producers. There's something else that President Hakainde Hichilema touted, the net metering. Now, this was for micro producers like yourself and myself. If you have solar, you have some access, you can sell it to Zesco. This is micro, but we are discussing the power trade because this is where the millions of dollars are. Today's topic will be introductory in nature. I'm doing a detailed write-up so that our people could be informed. Sorry, I'm still wearing my headsets. And so let's start. That is a program we are discussing today. Before we go any further, I understand for the last 4 days that Airtel network subscribers cannot access Facebook. And there is a huge debate. Who is doing this? Is it the state? Is it the network that is down? Why isn't Airtel apologizing to customers who cannot access Facebook? Apparently, when you are on Airtel and you open Facebook, it's bringing old material. So has Facebook been tampered with under Airtel? If you have MTN and if you are using Wi-Fi, you are okay. But if you are using Airtel network, millions of Zambians are failing to access Facebook on Airtel subscribers. And apparently there is no apology from Airtel. There's no discussion or debate about Airtel. And to watch, whoever is watching me, they are watching me through either MTN or Wi-Fi network. So you can go to social media, to especially WhatsApp, and alert people that if you want to watch, for example, live programs like mine right now, either use Wi-Fi, use VPN, or use MTN or any other networks. I don't know about Zamtel. You can tell me in the comments. But this is what we are discussing today. Open access of the infrastructure. What does this mean?
That yesterday in this room, it's a cabinet room, we formally approved the open access policy on electricity, on energy. which really will now give more, if you like, opportunities for private investors in the energy sector. Independent power producers, trading, doesn't matter where your customers are. You may generate in that corner, you sell in that corner or outside the country. This is novel for this country. It's not been there. But through your efforts, through that recognition that we need to bottom up the economy, to create opportunities for our people, jobs, business, transactions as it were. Someone is selling a good, someone is selling a service. If there's a seller, there's a buyer. That transaction helps to grow the economy. We found that extremely, extremely gratifying from you and your team on focusing on projects. Sins of my past. I am tilted towards more on getting the economy right, getting the economy to grow, so we can support democracy, we can support social sectors.
And I'm pleased that the UK has recently worked with your government and the authorities to expand the provision to an additional 3.7 million people to expand coverage of those affected by the drought. Of course, we can't underestimate the effects of climate change, and I recall that one of your first international engagements as President was to the COP26 UN Climate Change Summit in my country, in Glasgow, and then in London. And I'm pleased and proud of the partnership that we as two nations have continued to show on the international stage in terms of tackling this challenge that faces us all.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be flashing the YouTube link. I think Grindstone is broadcasting on YouTube. I don't know what's happening to my YouTube. You can join us on YouTube. Let me just share that quickly on all our pages so that you can watch this. You watch it on YouTube. Let me just give me a moment. I'm a technician, I'm the cameraman, I'm the everything, so that you watch it on YouTube. I'll put it on my page. Or go to Grindstone YouTube link. Go to Grindstone YouTube link. Let me share it quickly on my page for those that can see and share it. This is an important broadcast, but it will be introductory in nature. We think that this is a very important subject. Just give me a moment as I share the YouTube link for Airtel customers to watch from. Let me put on my page. You can find the YouTube link, or you can go to Grindstone TV, where you can watch it. Let me just do that quickly on my page to share the YouTube link. So we've been going through the worst load shedding and power cuts we've ever had in the last, many people are saying in the last 60 years, because this apparently is the worst we've ever experienced. Zambia has been having critical investment in the power sector. By 2011, when the Patriotic Front came into office, we only had let me just play this. I sort out something very urgently. Excuse me, I'll come back to you. Yeah.
That yesterday in this room, it's a cabinet room, we formally approved the open access policy on electricity on energy, which really will now give more, if you like, opportunities for private investors in the energy sector. Independent power producers, trading, doesn't matter where your customers are. You may generate in that corner, you sell in that corner or outside the country. This is novel for this country. It's not been there. But through your efforts, through that recognition that we need to bottom up the economy, to create opportunities for our people, jobs, business, transactions, as it were. Someone is selling a good, someone is selling a service. If there's a seller, there's a buyer. Transaction helps to grow the economy. We found that extremely, extremely gratifying from you and your team on focusing on projects. Sins of my past. I am tilted towards more on getting the economy right, getting the economy to grow, so we can support democracy, we can support social sectors.
And I'm pleased that the UK has recently worked with your government and the authorities to expand the provision to an additional 3.7 million people to expand coverage of those affected by the drought. Of course, we can't underestimate the effects of climate change, and I recall that one of your first international engagements as president was to the COP26 UN Climate Change Summit in my country, in Glasgow, and then in London. And I'm pleased and proud of the partnership that we as two nations have continued to show on the international stage in terms of tackling this challenge that faces us all.
But your government is now looking at several things. You are aware of our removal of the VAT on the solar and other energy sources. That's not enough. We have used this energy crisis to really flip the coin and find answers so we can return to energy surplus, sufficiency and surplus. Just to give you a test, maybe my colleagues who spoke this morning have covered it, or those who are coming. I know Chikwanda, my colleague, Mr. Chikwanda is here. Where are you? I saw you earlier. Johnston? Oh, you're there. You are in safe hands. I think you will cover these issues. Of what we are doing, please take your seat, to find solutions, quick solutions to the energy crisis and have the energy mix that will be more resilient in drought, in floods, given climate change damage that we're experiencing now. Just the gist, the test of it. And you can pick what you like from it. We're reforming the energy sector, long overdue reforms. The key components of that is to bring in independent power producers. Private sector largely, public sector, but private sector. Number two, to bring in private energy traders. Number two can only be facilitated by what we've called open access to the, you talked about something very important here, my colleague from Uganda, to the energy assets. Doesn't matter who owns them. Most of them are owned by the government through Zesco. So generators now of hydro, of thermal, of clean thermal technologies, solar, call it wind, have the right, through the reforms we put in place in the last 3 years, to move power, to evacuate it from the generation point to the consumption point. So it's not stranded. Johnson can lecture on that quite a lot. So this is what this government is part of our economic reforms, Mr. President. You don't have to put a small p. In my presence, you can put even a p bigger than mine. It doesn't change who is the Republican president, who is president of the... There's a small joke I want to give. I go to the national park, I come out of the helicopter. These guys are putting a red carpet in the national park. I said, why are you doing these things? He says, no, Mr. President, this is a procedure, this is what we do. I said, really? Do you mean I will not be present if I don't step on the red carpet? In the mud here in the park. So certain habits we must change. So I'm quite relaxed. there's no idea mean around here. Small p, big P, no P, just first name, no issue at all. What matters is the content, is us to deal with problems. And I want us to relax a little bit. Let's have a conversation. Just a conversation, we'll relax a little bit. So, to allow for independent power producers to produce and be able to sell to end customer, so open access. Because this is very important, and I'm coming to a point. The fourth point is that we are allowing for what we're calling net metering. I'm dealing with a challenge of energy, net metering in the energy, which means micro producers, households, micro producers can actually be able to generate power. Let's assume you consume 100 kilowatts of energy. And if you produce 150 kilowatts, under our new restructuring measures in the energy sector, you should be able to put 50 kilowatts onto the grid. So you become not just self-sufficient in energy, you actually generate revenue, value, let's call it value. That's the right word to use. by putting that into the grid. Pretty good, isn't it? So I would like the media to see this as a huge opportunity. Before I leave this issue, we've also put in another measure we call power blending. Expensive source, cheaper source, depending on technology you use, the material you use, you don't produce power at the same cost. It's different costs. I've been advising in the power sector in my business days. I was doing that for 20 years. Most Zambians are not aware. 20 years. So power blending, tariff is just the price blending. Really, these measures and a couple of others should be able to see us come out of the energy crisis much quicker than others assume or think or like to. That's my message. Now, here is what I'm asking the media houses to do. Take the opportunity. Costa, you said something that I've been saying to many Zambians. Media is not just journalism. It's a business. It's a business. So I would like to encourage you guys and the PDU. I'm glad you're dealing with PDU and the PBDF. This is what this servant of yours wants you to do. Take this as an opportunity.
That yesterday in this room, it's a cabinet room, we formally approved the open access policy on electricity, on energy, which really will now give more, if you like, opportunities for private investors in the energy sector, independent power producers, trading. Doesn't matter where your customers are. You may generate in that corner, you sell in that corner or outside the country. This is novel for this country. It's not been there. But through your efforts, through that recognition that we need to bottom up the economy, to create opportunities for our people, jobs, business, transactions, as it were. Someone is selling a good, someone is selling a service. If there's a seller, there's a buyer. That transaction helps to grow the economy. We found that extremely, extremely gratifying from you and your team on focusing on projects. Sins of my past. I am tilted towards more on getting the economy right, getting the economy to grow, so we can support democracy, we can support social sectors.
And I'm pleased that the UK has recently worked with your government and the authorities to expand the provision to an additional 3.7 million people to expand coverage of those affected by the drought. Of course, we can't underestimate the effects of climate change, and I recall that one of your first international engagements as president was to the COP26 UN Climate Change Summit in my country, in Glasgow, and then in London. And I'm pleased and proud of the partnership that we as two nations have continued to show on the international stage in terms of tackling this challenge that faces us all.
Now the Lord will carry us through. I'm told there's so much happening with this broadcast, so much interference. But I'm in America, so it shouldn't. They shouldn't interfere. Whoever is trying to frustrate this broadcast will not manage. So I'm sorry. Apparently we were on, but people couldn't hear me. And I hope now that you can hear me. Let me just verify with my. I hope that you can hear me. Okay, that's good. So volume is back. Today we are discussing the power trade business in Zambia. You have Zesco as a dominant power player in our country. It generates, it transmits, it distributes, it retails the power. Zesco also imports and exports power. Zesco is the main utility company, it's one of the largest utility companies in Africa. There have been attempts by the IMF and World Bank to break up and unbundle Zesco. It's one of the most lucrative infrastructure and company and state-owned enterprise. But they claim the inefficiencies, the lack of the role of private sector, and IMF and World Bank have been pushing to privatize this. So the previous government started to attempt to liberalize the electricity market, but still allow Zesco to remain. So they set up the Electricity Act, and in the Electricity Act of 2019, they set up open access, meaning that the infrastructure of Zesco can be rented, leased out, can carry or wheel power from other players, whether they were independent power producers or independent power suppliers, those that could have bought power from elsewhere. During this crisis, I'll bother to go back, assuming you didn't hear anything that I had said. So I will literally begin afresh. Zambia is quite energy secure. We are quite energy secure. When PF came into power in 2011, we had 1,600 megawatts as our installed capacity. It was very low, and it couldn't meet the growing economy of our country and the industrialization that was happening, especially after we opened those two large mines in Northwestern Province. Some of the largest mines in Africa were opened, and they created a power deficit, and the smelters that were later opened. So government had started to invest in the generation capacity. So we invested in Kariba North Bank. Kariba, where we have Kariba, Lake Kariba, was upgraded from somewhere like 600 megawatts to 1,080 megawatts. We added almost another 500 megawatts. Kafue Gorge produces something like 900 megawatts. We've done another 750 megawatts. There were investments that were done on Initeji and small mini hydros like Chishimba, Lunsemfwa were done. Zambia traditionally has a very limited independent power players in the market. CEC was the first one, was hived off ZCCM, made an independent company, and it has grown to be one of the biggest private sector companies in the power industry. There's Lunsemfwa Hydro Power Station. There's Maamba Energy that was set up, I think, in 2009 and has put up a plant of 300 megawatts. You saw the president instruct that NAPSA participates in its expansion of another 300 megawatts power plant that has been set up. What this means is that if Zambia has excess power and the region has perpetual deficit, whether it's Botswana, Namibia, DRC, which is industrializing at a higher scale, it meant that Zambia has an opportunity to be an energy hub, an energy exporter. Hence the Electricity Act of 2019 to attempt to liberalize the sector, implore and invite private sector to participate in it. But what has happened recently is what we are concerned of, the private power traders that have come on board. This is after President Hakainde Hichilema promulgated the regulations that were envisaged in the Electricity Act of 2019, and his government set up the regulations for power trade in 2024. So there are those regulations. I've got some of them cited. Now the market has moved very rapidly. All of a sudden, there are players that are importing power, selling to Zesco. There are players that are exporting power from Zesco into the DRC. The DRC has a huge deficit, especially the mines like Kolwezi and those that are in Lubumbashi. There's a huge perpetual deficit. And Zambians have been asking for transparency. If we have such huge power shortage in our country the last 1.5 years, who are you exporting power to? And now there's a revelation that is actually the private sector participating in this process. So the purpose of this address and the purpose of my letter, the document that I've written that I'll be publishing later in the day or tomorrow, is to call for debate on this matter so that the market becomes transparent, that the market becomes accountable, that the market is open. And in all this, we shouldn't allow anyone to steal the market, the traditional market that Zesco has. Remember, everyone is using the infrastructure of Zesco. So if anyone is buying power from Mozambique, from South Africa, or they are getting it from Maamba Collieries, Maamba Power, they are using Zesco infrastructure to wheel it to wherever they've sold it to, whether it's a DRC or to the mines on the Copperbelt and the Northwestern Province. There should be an open, transparent debate because Zambians are suffering in great deal of this load shedding. And I was saying we have a crisis with Airtel. Apparently, the last 4 days, people cannot access Facebook on Airtel. In fact, when you go to Facebook on Airtel, people are accessing 4-year-old, 5-year-old material. As have the servers at Airtel been tampered with, or if they collapsed, what is Airtel saying? To watch me, for example, you have to go to MTN or Wi-Fi, or you have to use VPN for you to watch this broadcast on Facebook if you are an Airtel subscriber. So again, we are calling attention to Zesco. They should tell us what is happening to Airtel. Ndola Energy launched with a lot of fanfare that they were producing 105 megawatts. They've gone silent. We are asking question. Why is Zesco paying millions of dollars to Ndola Energy that has ceased production? Again, this is in the power trade sector. Ndola Energy, like Maamba, are independent power producers. But of course, they have to feed off into Zesco. They have a power purchase agreement, bulk supplier agreement with Zesco, and Zesco buys that power. But from the information we have, Ndola Energy is finding it very difficult to produce. Remember why Ndola Energy was set up at Indeni is that when you bring in crude oil, the heavy oils that were byproduct of that refinery then would feed Ndola Energy, the heavy stock would feed Ndola Energy. Now that Tazama and Indeni are no longer into crude oil, you don't bring crude oil, it has become very expensive for Ndola Energy because it uses these jet engines to power up, and it has to import now, specifically these heavy oils, to run the jet engines at Ndola Energy. Apparently, there is a contract between Zesco and Ndola Energy that is murky, that is not transparent. Even if Ndola Energy has shut down, they're still minting the millions of dollars per month. We want government to shed light on that. Recently, there was a World Bank group delegation that came into the country, and they also visited the president. They are looking at energy security in the region. Remember, World Bank is funding transmission lines so that national grids from South Africa up to Ethiopia are connected, and from Ethiopia to Egypt, and from Egypt to Morocco, from Morocco to Senegal, from Senegal to Cairo to Ghana, from Ghana to Nigeria, so that all the major power pools, Southern Africa power pool, East Africa power pool, Central Africa power pool, Western power pool, and North Africa power pool are all interconnected, so that we are just now struggling. Is it Inga Dam producing this number of power and is an already connected infrastructure? Is it the great, a dam from Ethiopia that is producing 10,000 megawatts? Where can they evacuate that power to? Is it Zambia that has set up huge plants at Maamba Collieries, coal-fired plants, and it has excess power? So they are invested, very heavily invested. The European Development Bank, the European Union, World Bank, and IMF are heavily invested in these infrastructures. On the on the Tanzanian side, they have invested that Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania are connected. For us, there's a project from Iringa in Tanzania, in the southern highlands of Tanzania, up to Nakonde. They're supposed to put up that those power lines up to Tunduma. For Zambia, we started already. We are putting up industrial power lines from Kabwe into Serenje, which is at Pensulo. We have a huge substation there. And we have again another line that takes you into Eastern Province that should connect you to Mozambique. We have taken another industrial line from Pensulo into Mpika into Kasama. To connect to Tanzania, there is a lag. We have not built the industrial power transmission lines from Kasama into Nakonde and the required substation, and the link through Mbala into Sumbawanga for us to connect those two power grids. So this delegation came in the country to see the progress, and they briefed the president. This is a project they are funding. European Union and the World Bank Group have already mobilized up to $1 billion euros, $500 million to the Tanzanian side and $500 million to the Zambian side. The segment from Tanzania, the lead partner there is Agence France de Développement, AFD. This is a European Development Bank, like Africa Development Bank, but European ones. The International Development Association, which is part of the World Bank Group, is a commercial wing of the World Bank Group. And the European Union, they've all mobilized €1 billion for these interconnectors to be done. On the Tanzanian side, they have to construct 620 kilometers of 400 kV double circuit transmission line from Iringa in the southern highlands of Tanzania to the border of Tunduma and Zambia. And that a network between Mbala and Sumbawanga should also be created. It includes an industrial construction of a 4-kilometer stretch into Zambia to Nakonde. The construction so far are quite advanced. I think their industrial lines have reached or are about to reach Tunduma. On our side, on the Zambian segment, like I said, we have a project called the Zambia Transmission Interconnector. So this involved the construction of a 905-kilometer single circuit bi-directional 330 kV transmission interconnector. Like I said, from Kabwe to Pensulo in Serenje, 298 kilometers. From Pensulo to Mpika, 200 kilometers. From Mpika to Kasama, 330 kV, 200 kilometers. The part from Serenje to Pensulo, from Pensulo, Mpika, Kasama was done by the Chinese. It started in 2012. It was commissioned by 2015. The leg between Kabwe and Mpika, I think there's another contractor that has Kabwe and Pensulo, Kabwe. It has also been completed, 212 kilometers. So clearly you can see that when these projects are done, the electricity sector is expected to thrive. Why was there worry about the World Bank Group? They were shocked in their briefing with either the president or the minister, I don't know who it is, who told them that they don't have to worry about the Zambian side because largely it has been done. Remember, the Kabwe transmission lines into Serenje have been done. Serenje up to Kasama have been done. What we are remaining with is an industrial line, a high voltage line from Kasama into Nakonde, Mbala, Nakonde, so that you also can join with the Tanzanian group. So the World Bank delegation in their review were very, very disappointed because they've been at this project since 2019. Feasibility studies have been done. Sections of the projects are being done in Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and like I've said, from Tanzania into Zambia. Sections of these routes are being done. And like I've said, even for Zambia, some parts are being done. Zambia informed them that there's a private sector that will take over that project. So again, we demand for transparency. Why would you bring in a private sector when you have World Bank, EU, and they've mobilized funds already, and the project is underway? Of course, the construction will be done either as a loan to the two power utilities, Tanzania network supplier, TANESCO, and Zambia, Zesco. These are probably two loans to these power utilities underwritten by the Zambian government. Someone is saying they want to bring in the private sector there. That's a matter of concern. To what extent do we have to promote private interest over national interest? So I think this matter is under review. It is quite recent when the World Bank team visited, and my one of the technical contacts that was in there is not in Zambia, and is not in Zambia, by the way, informed me about this. That's it. You shine some light about what's happening to the power sector. There seems to be confusion and an imposition of the private sector on the market, and it might undermine what all the partners are doing. You don't want to be a laughing stock. You are doing things under the carpet. These matters must be discussed. Let's come to the main topic, power trading. Remember, the current model of electricity trade involves long-term bilateral power purchase agreements and bulk supply agreements where entire outputs of the plants, for example, Zesco would sell to CEC or Maamba Collieries will sell to Zesco. The entire plant, it's sold to the utility Zesco, who have then a long contract, like 20 to 25 years. That has been the current model. So Zesco signs these long-term power purchase agreement or bulk supply agreements. Remember, one of the first things that President Hakainde Hichilema did was to ensure that CEC and Zesco hammered a deal, locked it in. I think is it 15-year or 25-year agreement they've signed, that Zesco will supply power for the next 25 years under this rate, whatever the circumstances. So there have been these long-term power purchase agreements regulating. And like I stated, in the region, Zesco already has a bilateral agreement with South Africa, with DRC, with Malawi, and recently we signed some long-term agreements with Namibia, Botswana, and Tanzania. So the purpose of the Electricity Act and the electricity debate, there've been a lot of activities, especially driven by the donors. This debate has not involved Zambians. A cost service study was done that demonstrated that what was hindering private sector participation in the market was that the rates were low. So a cost of service study was done to understand how much it is that Zesco produces power and then supplies it to you and me, and how private sector can participate. Good ideas. You have to understand. So the cost of service study was done. It was produced. It was adopted by cabinet. Cabinet even now authorized Zesco. That's why Zesco has a long-term tariff approval from ERB. It's arising from that cost of service study of how much electricity Zesco should sell. So you saw in 2022 and 2023, Zesco bothered to secure an agreement, approval, from for tariff increments from ERB. So they've been given a 17% increment every year. And recently we saw emergency tariffs approved where we are paying for the exports. But what both ERB and Zesco didn't tell you is that this emergency tariff you are getting is to allow, not Zesco, is to allow the private players that are bringing in this power to be paid by Zesco. And for me, that is where I have an issue. Zesco does not need a third party to import power from Mozambique, from South Africa, or from any other producer, both state utility or independent. So now there are middlemen in between. And that's where I think we need to have an open, transparent debate. Each country's electricity in the Southern Africa power pool regulates its own market, although there is a market called the Southern Africa power pool market where they can go sell and trade, because remember, you can't store this power. But when the regulations were passed by President Hakainde Hichilema, the regulations of 2024, we have enabled an open access market that have allowed independent power producers, large power consumers, and large traders or traders to use the infrastructure currently owned by Zesco. Irrespective of its operation, Zesco must open that infrastructure for whoever says they have power. And as soon as they get a license from Energy Regulation Board, they should have access, I think, in a period of 3 days after approval, 3 to 30 days, according to the regulations. So if today Emmanuel Mwamba has an energy license and ERB approves me as a trader and I get power from South Africa, as soon as I have the license, Zesco must open its infrastructure and must will my power to whoever my customer is. That's what is happening. There's an enticing thing the president was telling you about micro, sellers like ourselves, where there'll be what they are calling net metering. This is where if you have, we are generating some power through solar and you have some excess, you can sell it to the grid, you can sell it to Zesco. So they've spoken about that more than the role of the power traders. The contracts and approvals and licenses that both Zesco and ERB are giving are ranging from 3 months to 5 months. Who are the current power traders in Zambia? So there's another matter that I wanted, I think government also should shed light. Zesco has put up a plant in Chisamba, 400 megawatts. You had another announcement that Kafue Gorge, a subsidiary of Kariba North Bank Extension Power Company Corporation, is putting up a similar $100 million solar plant again in Chisamba. And then there are 2 other companies that have spoken about the same area, Chisamba. So I'm wondering, are these projects separate or are they one? Because the grid, the 100 megawatts that Zesco has been doing is coming to completion very soon. Then there's this announcement that will be the largest solar power station of 100 megawatts. Again, that doesn't make sense. Then they are touting that Kariba North Bank is the one setting up again in Chisamba. Then there are 2 other private players that have announced in the same area. I think there should be clarification. Oh, what is it about Chisamba? Or is it the same project or 2, 3 projects meshed into one where they are using the infrastructure of Zesco to set up this? One, I think, has gone into agreement with Zesco and a Moroccan company. And there's another one, this one again with Kafue Gorge, which is a subsidiary of Zesco. Again, information is marking. Let me just play the president announcing this as I organize my thoughts.
That yesterday in this room, it's a cabinet room, we formally approved the open access policy on electricity, on energy, which really will now give more, if you like, opportunities for private investors in the energy sector, independent power producers, trading. Doesn't matter where your customers are. You may generate in that corner, you sell in that corner or outside the country. This is novel for this country. It's not been there. But through your efforts, through that recognition that we need to bottom up the economy, to create opportunities for our people, jobs, business, transactions, as it were. Someone is selling a good, someone is selling a service. If there's a seller, there's a buyer. That transaction helps to grow the economy. We found that extremely, extremely gratifying from you and your team on focusing on projects. Sins of my past, I am tilted towards more on getting the economy right, getting the economy to grow, so we can support democracy, we can support social sectors.
And I'm pleased that the UK has recently worked with your government and the authorities to expand the provision to an additional 3.7 million people to expand coverage of those affected by the drought. Of course, we can't underestimate the effects of climate change, and I recall that one of your first international engagements as president was to the COP26 UN Climate Change Summit in my country, in Glasgow, and then in London. And I'm pleased and proud of the partnership that we as two nations have continued to show on the international stage in terms of tackling this challenge that faces us all.
Yeah, the president announcing the open access program, and that it's been launched and it's in operation. Like I said, the traditional power players in this sector has been CEC, who was a power supply agreement with Zesco, 20-25 years. It expired in 2019. There were various issues with government because I think there was an attempt to rationalize that investment. Remember, it's formerly owned by the state, the CCM. But however, this government quickly gave that huge contract again to CEC. We've demanded for the details. How much is CEC buying power from Zesco? I think our people need to know. It's not that we are against private sector, but I think we are against exploitation of public resources. So there should be a transparent relationship between Zesco and CEC, and that agreement must be open. You have the original ones, Lunsemfwa Hydro, you have Maamba Collieries. Maamba Power Energy has a very exploitative relationship with Zesco because Zesco buys the power at a huge cost and then sells it at a very low cost. So Zesco is perpetually in debt with Maamba Collieries. They can never recover from that exploitative relationship. And that's why when there are all these power purchase agreements that government has announced, it is our duty, your duty and my duty to demand how much will Zesco buy this power? Because for anyone to set up these solar plants, solar farms, they require that Zesco underwrites it as the off-taker. And then, they are either then get loans against the back of Zesco's power purchase agreement. So there should be disclosure, full public disclosure, what these agreements are stating. Because you heard that my young brother, Jito Kayumba, announced that they've signed up to over $7 billion worth of power purchase agreements with Zesco. Are we yoking Zesco to a huge debt for a long time? So our call there again is make these details transparent so that Zesco is not indebted forever. Zesco doesn't make money. But everyone in the ecosystem are minting millions of dollars like it is happening. So who are the new power traders after the regulations were promulgated? There's EN Power, which is ENDRC, because they've been operating in DRC. They've licenses with the authorities from both Zesco and DRC. There's Kanona Power Company. It's a relatively new company. It was established in 2023. There's GreenCo. There's Africa Energy Trading Group Holdings Corporation. There's Petrodex Trading LLC. There's GreenCo Power Company. So the program will be in parts. As you can notice, this is a very technical subject. Probably already inundated with so many facts I am spewing. You know, you get fatigued when you're discussing numbers and when you're discussing technical details. So we'll start with EN Power. Who is EN Power? The primarily enterprise power DRC. They are a supplier of power to the mines in DRC by getting power from Zambia. Did you hear that? So the primary source of power is Zambia, but the primary deliverer of power into the DRC. They also have access to the Southern Africa power pool, and their role is to supply power to the DRC mining sector. So in Zambia, the various approvals that they obtained from the Energy Regulation Board and the power supply agreements with Zambia, with both Zesco and ERB, is that they signed from Zambia 450 megawatts. Namibia, they are supplying 50 megawatts. Mozambique, 150 megawatts. Zimbabwe, 30 megawatts. These are active programs that this EN Power, that is getting power from Zesco with the approval of ERB and exporting this power. They are getting up to 450 megawatts from Zambia and supplying the DRC. They are supplying 50 megawatts to Namibia. They are obtaining power from, let me read the lines. You know, this accounts document. So there are two lines. There's an importation line and an export line. The import line is 450 megawatts from Zambia and 150 megawatts from Mozambique. They are using Zesco infrastructure to supply Namibia with 50 megawatts, Zimbabwe with 30 megawatts, and the DRC, the bulk of their supplies. Your question then comes on. So if EN Power is getting power from both Zesco and the Southern Africa power pool, from Zesco up to 450 megawatts, and Zambia tells you, government will tell you, we are exporting power to the DRC. Your question will be, who is the we? Is it EN Power that you are talking about? Because there are documents to the bank, there are documents to ERB, there are documents to the DRC are showing their source of power. Zambia, 450 megawatts. And from Mozambique, 150 megawatts. Is our shortage of power in Zambia artificial? Is the production of our power committed to these power traders? So today we'll discuss this EN Power, and they have another huge project which they are attempting to put up, and they've obtained approvals. They are trying to do a private transmission line, an interconnector between Kalumbila and Kolwezi, a 330 kV lines. In their document, they are showing that they've gotten all the approvals from Zambia, ERB, and they are mobilizing resources to be a 196 kilometer on the DRC side and 134 kilometers on the Zambian side. So the interconnector is for wherever they get this power from, they want to create an ecosystem between Kolwezi and Northwestern Province, where they have this industrial interconnector. At the moment, to export power to the DRC, it has to go through just one single interconnector, the one we have across, I think, Copperbelt and Lubumbashi. which then takes its power to Kolwezi and other mining areas. So there is a proposal by Enterprise Power, which is already getting power from Zesco up to 450 megawatts, and they're exporting this power into Tanzania, into the DRC. They also have this huge project they are calling KKIP, the Kalumbila Kolwezi 330 kV interconnector. And they've gotten approvals. It will be, like I've said, it will be between Zambia and Tanzania. That will be the direct interconnector. 196 on the DRC side, 134 on the Zambian side. They also set up substation at Kalumbila substation, which is within FQM, First Quantum, Trident and Kalumbila. And they also set up another terminal substation at Kolwezi substation in the DRC. The line will cover supply 22 kilometers to FQM's Trident mine, to Bushingwe Forest, I think is Musele Chiefdom, Sailunga's Chiefdom, Kakoma Chiefdom. These could be chiefdoms along the way. I think as social responsibility, they are bypassing these lines, or they'll supply power to these entities. For today, we will discuss EN Power and what is happening to the sector. I'll open lines. I know it's Saturday. I know people are doing their own personal things, but I thought that we could discuss a debate. We can start it anytime. The goodness with Facebook, you can watch any other time. I don't want to go into any other details. If you want to participate on the line, you can call. I'll open the phone lines just for a few minutes, and we can discuss. Discussing the open access and the implication. What has actually happened is that power players are importing power and selling it to Zesco, when Zesco has capacity to buy its own power. It's been a utility from 1959. It's a legacy company that is properly established. Why do we have middlemen selling power to Zesco? Secondly, these people that we are selling power to, all these, the ones I've listed, the current new power traders since the promulgation of these new regulations by the government of President Hakainde Hichilema, are buying power from Zesco and exporting it to the DRC or to wherever the shortage is, to the mines. Is this process robbing Zesco of its traditional market of import and export, of its traditional role to supply power to this? Are we leaving Zesco to the bear and enriching this private sector? Did we say open access meant that you have to rob Zesco of its traditional income? You leave it bare, then you accuse it of being inefficient. You're accusing it of being not viable. Are you preparing to unbundle it? Why are these schemes just to make millions for these private players? I think that was the purpose of today's broadcast. I will have part 2 on Monday. I've introduced it, and I'll open the phone lines if you wish to participate.
That yesterday in this room, it's a cabinet room, we formally approved the open access policy on electricity on energy, which really will now give more, if you like, opportunities for private investors in the energy sector. Independent power producers, trading, doesn't matter where your customers are. You may generate in that corner, you sell in that corner or outside the country. This is novel for this country. It's not been there. But through your efforts, through that recognition that we need to bottom up the economy, to create opportunities for our people, jobs, business, transactions, as it were. Someone is selling a good, someone is selling a service. If there's a seller, there's a buyer. That transaction helps to grow the economy. We found that extremely, extremely gratifying from you and your team on focusing on projects. Sins of my past. I am tilted towards more on getting the economy right, getting the economy to grow, so we can support democracy, we can support social sectors.
And I'm pleased that the UK has recently worked with your government and the authorities to expand the provision to an additional 3.7 million people to expand coverage of those affected by the drought. Of course, we can't underestimate the effects of climate change, and I recall that one of your first international engagements as president was...
The blood, they're killing people. And someone became a politician years later and adopted the same red color as their party's color. Now, this is the environment we had. Colleagues, honestly speaking, I'm very privileged to be here today. And I wish that I had a bit more time to listen to some of your normal sessions, and really just normal sessions where you are having conversations, because I would like to hear a few more things so that where we can remedy the issues that the media is facing. So I thought I should unpack that. Media is a very important component in society. Think of a situation where there is no credible media. Just think about it. What we'll be obtaining will return to the days when human beings weren't civilized, isn't it? In the villages those days, someone just needed to point a finger that there is a witch, and that person was gone. Death sentence. The media can say, what do you mean he's a witch? Or she's a witch? If you grow older in a village, you must think twice whether to remain in the village or not, right? Otherwise you are a witch because of your age. So really, media is critical to civility in society, to fairness, to the correct description of things. This is what you are responsible for. We are responsible. And I must say, media evolves. Today, part of your theme is resilience amidst challenges. One of the challenges is the energy crisis. Just to help our Ugandan friends. I love Uganda, by the way. I used to run a firm which was called Coopers and Lyman. And I used to come to Kampala to see my friend who was running Coopers. I was running Coopers here. He was running Coopers in Uganda, called George Egadu. He must be an old man if he's still alive now. So we used to trot around with the meetings in Nairobi, in Kampala, in Port Louis, in Lusaka, in Harare, in Johannesburg, globally. So I love Uganda. This country has been in an energy surplus position for many years. This is deficit we see is occasioned by the drought, wasted drought in living memory, largely. But we as a country...
Okay, thank you very much. I think today we're discussing a very good subject, the electricity trade that has emerged in our country following the promulgation of laws in our country by the government of President Hakainde Hichilema. They are basing it on the Electricity Act of 2019. They've set up regulations that have allowed for the emergence of these new power traders, but the environment is murky. It's not transparent. And the purpose of this debate was to cause light on the matter. So this was the first broadcast. We'll refresh the facts, especially that we had technical and teething issues when the broadcast started. So I'm going to have another program, part 2, where we'll discuss everything and put in context. The purpose is that government, ERB, and Zesco must speak transparently. Who is importing power on behalf of Zesco? Why isn't Zesco importing its own power? How much are we selling How much is Zesco selling in light of the current crisis of power shortage and load shedding? How much is Zesco exporting? And now we see that there are these new power traders, private power traders, that are getting this power from Zesco and supplying to the DRC while our market perishes. So until next time, God bless you, God bless our country. We'll have part 2 on Monday. I'll make an exception. Hello, guys. Sorry if you had gone. Come back. I have my regular caller from the United Kingdom. I'd signed off. I'd said good night. But my regular caller from UK has special attention to this program. So I'll allow him to speak. But my brother, don't worry. I'm doing part 2 on Monday where we will rehash all the facts and then discuss all the players who make it transparent to the people of Zambia, who's selling what power to who. And we have some details of up to 5 of these companies. So we'll begin to profile them and tell the people of Zambia who is getting what and who's selling where and the millions they're making while our people suffer load shedding. And did it mean that if we have open access, that means we have to deprive Zesco of its resource, we have to deprive our people of power? That is the purpose of this debate. So make your contributions, but we'll have a program on Monday. You are special.
Yeah.
We have reopened the program, even if I said bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mwamba. I was listening. Yeah, so I don't know where I missed it, where you said bye.
Okay.
Yeah. Mwamba, as usual, you've started a very, very, very important topic, and I think there's need. One thing having a policy, and then one thing having a clear policy which is transparent and also accountable. Because government don't just make policies; they have to be accountable. Those policies are made for the people. They are our stewards. They're meant for the people. They need to explain them. They need to be clear. They need to be transparent.
Yeah.
Just like we need to talk about mining, policy. The government talks about increasing the production of copper up to 15 million. But how? How are they going to do it? How is it going to benefit Zambians? Because at the moment, Zambians are not benefiting from the minerals. So are we going to produce 3 million? And all the money, all the copper will be sold in Dubai, in China, or somewhere else. So, just to make it quicker, Mwamba, I'll just give an example of the UK. The UK, electricity used to be produced and sold by one company, owned by the government. So, and then at one point they came up with a policy that no. In order for us to bring in players, we need to come up with a policy that will be very clear and that will support private sector. So the government plays a role, just like I'll give an example, in the railway sector. It used to be run by the government completely. Then the government says, no, we can't, we need to leave it to the private sector. But who control the railroads? So the government created a company called Rail Network, National Rail Network. So National Rail Network controls and maintains all the rail networks in the UK. And then the government now gives licenses to private companies to bring in their coaches and run their own, business So all the trains, networks in the UK, Virgin, all of them, they are controlled by the private sector. But the government makes a lot of money because you have to pay tax to the roads you are using, the railroads you are using. Yeah. So electricity in the UK, there is a company called National Grid. That's what they've done. There's a company called National Grid. National Grid, I think the government has got shares in there. And also it's got some private ownership. Most of them UK companies. What do they call them? That kind of shareholding where private sector comes in. I've just forgotten the name. So they create this infrastructure. So that infrastructure belonged to the government at one time. So it's called National Grid. So it transports all the high voltage power in the UK. That's just one company. It's just a transporter. And then below there are producers. So now they invite the private companies to come and produce. And then when they produce, they also sell now to the wholesalers. And then the wholesaler sells to the retailers. But whoever wants to transmit electricity in that value chain, they go through the national grid. Everybody has to contribute to the national grid so that the government knows how much electricity it's got, and then they move it from one place to another. So it can move from one company to another. But the policy is very, very clear. The national grid controls every electricity that is produced in the country. So there is national grid, there is a producer, there is a wholesaler, and there is a retailer. And it's all controlled by the private sector. So if the government is going through that route, they are going it through a wrong way. It's not clear. So at the end of the day, Zesco will suffer. At the end of the day, there will be corruption. Because Maamba, where there is no transparency and accountability, there's likely going to be corruption. So the point is, the policy needs to be clear. Are you trying to unbundle Zesco? Because there are think tanks. There's a think tank in Zambia. I think you know it. It's called ICT something. They talked about unbundling Zesco into three areas. The production, the transmission, and the retail. So if that's the way they're trying to go, let them come clearer. But then, if they unbundle Zesco in those three ways, Zesco cannot be in all those three sectors. Because then there will be a monopoly. So Zesco can only be in one sector, either production or transmission. So then Zesco becomes what is known as the national grid now in the UK, controlling everybody. And then now they need to bring players now to act, to do the job of producing, which Zesco does. Then which means they can sell all the production sites for Zesco, make a lot of money, improve the grid, and then Zesco now just become the controller of the grid. And then there are players now who will be selling it now to the people. But that one needs to be very clear. And if that is done, there's a lot of money there. It can create a lot of jobs. It can create a lot of taxes. But when things are not done properly, they are done like at night, nothing is going to come out of it. It's the Zambian people who are going to suffer. I rest my case, Mama.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, Patrick Chilufya from the United Kingdom is a regular caller on this program. And remember, I was just laying the foundation, and I wanted to end the broadcast, but he called. If there's any other lucky person, especially my regular callers, who wish to contribute to this program, can participate. We're discussing this sector, very key. Something has emerged in the power trade market. Something is playing in the power trade market, and I think we needed to. Oh, there's so many issues tonight. I didn't realize. I'm told my profile is not broadcasting. My page is broadcasting, but my profile is not broadcasting. Ichintunga chakosa, I love it. I love it so much because that means we need to discuss it. You know, we were discussing the matter of Zesco, and we'll go with part 2 on Tuesday. I think part 2 will be very critical, that we rehash all the facts that we have and we discuss in particular detail of this program. So that's not good if I was not live on my page, because the primary audience on the page is on my Emmanuel Mwamba Verified, but someone is sending me that I was live only for a short period, and we're live on YouTube, we're live elsewhere, but on my page, my primary page where I have a lot of supporters, I'm told I was not live. My technician is telling me from Zambia that I was not live. I don't know what happened, but for those that were watching elsewhere, they were able to watch me. So as I close the debate, let me just rehash the facts we're discussing today. There's a matter between Ndola Energy that government must tell us why they are still paying millions of dollars to Ndola Energy that has shut production. The difficulty with Ndola Energy, it was set up at Indeni so that when you import crude oil from Tazama and we process it using Indeni refinery, that heavy oils that remained is the one that used to power Ndola Energy. In light of the crisis, I think they repurposed the machines that they could use. I don't know what fuel, but it turned out to be very expensive. We don't know what was provided in those contracts. And apparently Zesco is paying millions of dollars. That is what was item number 1. Number 2, there was a World Bank group delegation that recently visited our country, because they are putting up interconnectors to connect the Southern Africa power pool to the Eastern Africa power pool. And they've arranged financing from Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and from Zambia with Tanzania. On the other side, they mobilized $500 million euro. This is World Bank, the European Development Bank, and the segment that's supposed to be done on the Tanzanian side, the lead developer and financier is Agence France de Développement, AFD, it's like Africa Development Bank. Then IDA, International Development Association, which is under World Bank Group. They've mobilized $500 million for Tanzania. Tanzania is supposed to do and construct a 620-kilometer, 400 kV double-circuit transmission from Iringa in southern highlands of Tanzania to the border of Nakonde, Mbala, and Sumbawanga. It also included the installation at Tunduma, the construction of a 4-kilometer transmission line to Nakonde. On the Zambian side, I think we've done very well. Kabwe we have a project called the Zambia Transmission Interconnector that's supposed to connect us to East Africa Interconnector. It's a 905-kilometer single-circuit bi-directional 330 kV transmission interconnector from Kabwe to Pensulo in Serenje, which is 298 kilometers, from Pensulo to Mpika 200 kilometers, from Mpika to Kasama 200 kilometers, from Kasama to Nakonde 212 kilometers. The only part that hasn't been done in Zambia is the Kasama-Nakonde 330 kV line, 212 kilometers. Then we're supposed to set up a new 330 kV circuit at Nakonde and a 14-kilometer double circuit 400 kV line into Tunduma. Then we discussed power trading, that the current model for electricity trade in Zambia has been long-term bilateral power purchase agreement and bulk supply agreements, where entire outputs of plants are sold to power utilities like Zesco under an agreement as long as 20 to 25 years. Zesco, as a utility company, has been importing power or exporting power to the Southern Africa Power Pool. And there's a market, the Southern Africa Power Pool market, where you can sell power at short notice, long notice, and you can agree with whoever the traders are. But recently, Zambia adopted an open access regime for electricity market. The open access market enables independent power producers and large power consumers to engage in electricity trade, regional and intra-market. It's relying on an authority from the Electricity Act of 2019 and the recently promulgated Electricity Open Access Regulations of 2024 enacted by President Hakainde Hichilema's government. Under this, we have companies that have been given licenses to trade power, import it from wherever they can import it or get it from Zesco and distribute it to their own market. At the moment, the new power traders, other than the ones we know, CEC, other than the ones we know, Maamba Power Energy, other than the ones we know, Lunsemfwa Energy, and others, there are these new power traders that have come on the market, and DRB has given them licenses. This is EN Power of DRC. It's registered in DRC. It has licenses in DRC and Zambia. Kanona Power Company, GreenCo, Africa Energy Trading Group, Petrodex Trading, and GreenCo Power. Today we profiled one power trader, who is ENCA. Let me just see if I can briefly go that. I'm doing all this to my audience that was missing on my profile in light of the challenges we had. So I'm doing this for that audience, just to hash, but we are going to have part 2 where we are going to profile all these companies and we'll tabulate to the Zambians what projects they have and what they are selling to who and what is involved. So today we profiled one company called EN Power. We have the shareholders, we have the owners, details, and this is what EN Power is doing with Zesco. They are buying power according to the details that is available here. They are trading power with DRC and they've registered as a SAP member. They've been importing power from Zambia since September 2024. And of these authorities that they've obtained from ERB, from Ministry of Energy, from SAP membership, and from the DRC. And they've been obtaining power up to 450 megawatts from Zambia and 150 megawatts from Mozambique. Then they've been exporting to Namibia, to Zimbabwe, and to the DRC. They also have a project they're calling Kalumbila Kolwezi Interconnector Project, 330 kV project. They've demonstrated that the authorities from both Tanzania and Zambia, they want to bring power from Kolwezi into Solwezi. Their main customers, I think, and driver is First Quantum, Trident, and Kalumbila. And this interconnector will be 196 from the DRC side and 134 from the Zambian side. And they are currently mobilizing resources for that interconnector. Remember what I said about interconnectors, that for the DRC market, which has a huge shortage of power, which now has overtaken Zambia by its copper production, it has gone to it has a huge shortage of power and it desperately wants power. The whole purpose of this debate is for government to be transparent about who they are giving licenses to, who is importing power on behalf of Zesco, why isn't Zesco importing its own power, why does it have to rely on private sector to import its power? It has done this job for the last 60 years. And who's taking this power to the markets, depriving our country, and our country, which is heavily load-shedded? We'll have part 2 in greater detail and the profile of these companies that are power traders on Monday. I'd said bye, but I had a call from UK, and I was urgently told that I wasn't broadcasting on my page, which has a primary audience for what I do. So God bless you. We'll be back on Monday with part 2.
To the COP26 UN Climate Change Summit in my country, in Glasgow and then in London. And I'm pleased and proud of the partnership that we as two nations have continued to show on the international stage in terms of tackling this challenge that faces us all.
That yesterday in this room, it's a cabinet room, we formally approved the open access policy on electricity, on energy, which really will now give more, if you like, opportunities for private investors in the energy sector, independent power producers, trading. Doesn't matter where your customers are. You may generate in that corner, you sell in that corner or outside the country. This is novel for this country. It's not been there. But through your efforts, through that recognition that we need to bottom up the economy, to create opportunities for our people, jobs, business, transactions as it were. Someone is selling a good, someone is selling a service. If there's a seller, there's a buyer. That transaction helps to grow the economy. We found that extremely, extremely gratifying from you and your team on focusing on projects. Sins of my past. I am tilted towards more on getting the economy right, getting the economy to grow, so we can support democracy, we can support social sectors.
And I'm pleased that the UK has recently worked with your government and the authorities to expand the provision to an additional 3.7 million people to expand coverage of those affected by the drought. Of course, we can't underestimate the effects of climate change, and I recall that one of your first international engagements as president was to the COP26 UN Climate Change Summit in my country, in Glasgow and then in London. And I'm pleased and proud of the partnership that we as two nations have continued to show on the